Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law she can't expect her kids to benefit from me being their aunt when she has always treated me badly and kept me out? I married my husband 4 years ago and I have known him for years. He has an older sister who does not like me. My crime? Her husband got a little too flirty with me when my husband introduced us all, and he had to be told to back off. But not just me, but my husband too. Of course, I was the cheap woman trying to steal her man. The fact that I never did anything to encourage it and actively told him to stop and walked away wasn't enough. It also wasn't an isolated thing with him, but my husband intervened to make sure he knew we meant business. She has 3 kids with a husband, and ever since that day we met, she has kept me at arm's length with her kids. And she's rude, very rude, has also treated me in very childish ways. But it's whatever. I won't force myself into a place I'm not wanted. I am kind to the kids, but she never wants me spending time with them or talking too much with them. But now she's jealous because my sister's children are close to me, and my husband and I spoil them since I have fertility issues and might never get to be a mom. She called my husband out first, and he told her that her kids were welcome, but he wasn't going to take money we earned together and tell me I need to stay home or not speak to her kids while they're with him/us. She then confronted me and accused me of treating her children badly. I told her she can't treat me badly, keep me out of her kids' lives, and expect them to benefit from me being their aunt. I told her I would love to spoil her kids too, but if I'm not welcome, then I can't. She said I was taking our issues out on her kids. Maybe I said things wrong here. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I'm gonna say everyone sucks here. I think sister-in-law's pretty obvious on your part. I realize she's forcing this. But what I don't hear here is your husband discussing this with her or with her husband and just cutting her out of the discussion. This is coming from a petty dispute between you two. And for some reason, neither husband has gotten involved to try to work this out, according to what you have shared here. So from that level, I don't think you've done enough to resolve this for the kids. You are both making the kids suffer because of your own issues with each other. Have your husband and hers had an active involvement in either prolonging this or fixing it? My husband tried to fix things, but she thinks I'm a cheap woman out to steal her husband. After that, he could barely look at her when she called me that. Not the a-hole, but those kids don't deserve to be left out because their mom is like this. I'd find a way to do stuff for them in spite of their mom. I would hate for them to ever think you just didn't care for them. How would I do that without going against her boundaries? They're her kids, even if it means them being left out. Anything outside of that, she could say I was kidnapping her kids. Not the a-hole. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. To be fair, sister-in-law's kids aren't winning any prizes because of their mom. I know, and that's really sad. But mom is the blocker to the kids having a relationship and all the benefits that come with that. Not the a-hole. So she wants her money for her kids, but doesn't want you around, is rude, and actively works against her kids having a relationship with you. She's an entitled a-hole, and she has only herself to blame. Another human who decided to walk in shadow. The brother-in-law has to wear some of the blame too. I don't actually think the brother-in-law's to blame for the way sister-in-law is treating OP. Sister-in-law made a choice to blame OP and take out her frustration on OP instead of placing the blame where it's due. For the record, brother-in-law's awful, and what he did was awful. Sister-in-law's equally awful for making OP the scapegoat. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to offer my spare room to my cousin, who was recently kicked out of her parents' home for being gay? Context. Rebecca, 32, female, recently came out to her mother, 50s or 60s female, and it didn't go well. Her mother harbors strong homophobic beliefs, so I, 30 male, wasn't surprised that she reacted poorly. I was surprised, however, at how badly her mother took the news. To make a long story short, her mother kicked Rebecca out and all but disowned her. This happened last Saturday. The dispute. This afternoon, Rebecca called me to ask if she could stay in my guest room until she figures her situation out. I spent the day mulling it over, but ultimately decided to decline the request. Here's a summary of why. I'm not close to Rebecca. In fact, if anything, we have somewhat of a strained relationship. As we were rather close to age, we were often pitted against each other in terms of achievements and progress by various members of our extended family. As I grew up, I mellowed out, content to live life on my own terms. Rebecca, however, always took every opportunity to tear me down. Her latest slew of attacks against me involving her demeaning my job and claiming that my job added no value to society. I have no faith that Rebecca will figure anything out within anything remotely resembling a reasonable time frame. She's not exactly a functional adult. She's on her third degree after dropping out of her first two. She can't hold down a job, even the simplest part-time ones. As far as I'm aware, she's been unemployed for almost 2 years at this point. Rebecca has relied entirely on her parents for almost every facet of her life, be it having meals cooked for her, the cleaning, and ironing of her clothes, everything. Rebecca is very much a child despite her age. I'm not Rebecca's only option. Several of my cousins have their own places, even if they're just renting. Rebecca can go stay at theirs until she figures her situation out. And, unlike me, my cousins actually have a relationship with Rebecca and think fondly of her. The fallout. While I didn't expect Rebecca to be happy with my decision, I didn't anticipate her blowing up at me either. She called me selfish, that I took family for granted, and even attempted to label me as a homophobic. Like I said above, I was never that fond of Rebecca, so her words did not bother me all too much. What did hurt me were the words of some of my other cousins who I do care about, also accusing me of being inconsiderate. They say that as I'm the only one of my cousins who own my own place, and that I have an unused room, I should be offering that room to Rebecca. I don't know. Should I? How much do you owe family, even if you don't like that family? Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Rebecca's 32 years old, still living off her parents. Whoever takes her in will have a permanent house guest. Not roommate, house guest. Of course, the cousins want you to take her in. That way they don't have to. I'm surprised more people haven't mentioned her age. A 32-year-old getting kicked out of home and wanting someone else to support her? Hard pass. Right, she's accustomed to doing absolutely no adulting. Hasn't worked in 2 years. Whomever takes her in will need a whole skateboard, helmet, stick of dynamite / Looney Tunes Acme kit to get her out of their house. Not the a-hole. Well, the reason she got kicked out sucks. Rebecca's an a-hole who just so happens to be gay. It's your home, and based on your reasons listed and the information provided, I can't say you're in the wrong for what you did. Could it be seen as insensitive? Yes, and I do see it like that, as I'm a big proponent of supporting LGBT people as one myself. But Rebecca has seemingly done little to earn such aid, and based on your description of how she lived with her parents, I wouldn't make her my roommate either. Her being family shouldn't give her the right to be an a-hole and freeloader in your home. I tend to think that the LGBT stuff is irrelevant here. It is a condition that caused her need, but it is not the cause for OP's denial of meeting that need. OP is being perfectly reasonable in saying no to Rebecca. Living with someone requires a relationship with a level of trust and respect that she and Rebecca do not share. While being sensitive to the fact that Rebecca just came out is important, it does not alter the fact that OP and Rebecca do not have the established relationship. That would make living together even a moderately okay idea. How much do you owe family? Well, when the family is a cousin who has been the a-hole to you for years, I'd say you owe her a big, fat 0. You are not the a-hole, and I hope for your sake that your other cousins realize it. It sounds as if they're mad at you, mostly because they might now have to step up themselves and help take care of her, and they clearly don't want to. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not going to my sister's baby shower because it was on my birthday? I, 22 female, turned 22 last month. I had plans for my birthday. My fiancé and I planned to go to an art museum in a neighboring city, then afterwards go to a buffet restaurant along with some friends. We organized this a couple of months in advance. My sister Lola, 31 female, is pregnant with her 4th child, and for some reason, she decided to host the baby shower on my birthday. I didn't know until she sent out the email invites around 3 weeks before the day. I messaged Lola and told her that I'm sorry, but the shower's on my birthday, and I already made plans to celebrate my birthday. I don't know if Lola just forgot when my birthday was, which I doubt because our birthdays are 10 days apart. But she got really defensive and passive-aggressively said that it's fine that I don't prioritize family. She told me I'm being selfish. Lola told our parents about it and they got mad at me and demanded that I cancel my plans to go to the baby shower and implied that my unborn nibbling will hate me if I don't. I ended up not going to the shower and everyone is royally angry with me. Lola has me blocked and everything, and my parents are demanding that I apologize to her. Now for the top comments. Not a hole. You cancel plans for the first baby, but I'm surprised the fourth child even gets a baby shower. She should have plenty of baby supplies from the first three, so this just sounds like canvassing for free diapers. I feel it's okay to have a baby shower for the fourth, if the first three are the same gender and this one isn't. But sister is definitely entitled to demand sister to change her birthday plans for a lame baby shower. Not a hole. Why can't the kids all wear the same clothes as infants? It doesn't really matter at that age. Yeah, that's true. But from reading this post, I bet the sister just wanted the attention. Not a hole. Your sister had 22 years notice not to book that date, but I guess she doesn't prioritize family. This, accusing you of the very thing that she did and your parents supporting? I'm getting golden child vibes. Not a hole, but your sister is. Pay her no mind, and good on you for sticking with your plans. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister she can't live with me or stay with me? I'm 18 female. I'm a high school senior who moved out of my parents' house a week after my 18th birthday and who does not plan to move back in. Ever. My sister is 16. And since we were little kids, our parents have pushed the idea that sisters are friends and that your sister is the person you put before all other friends, and you do whatever they need from you. This always ended up very one-sided, with me needing to bring her with me when she wanted to come, me needing to let her sleep in my room and sometimes my bed when she had bad dreams, me missing out on a field trip because my sister fell sick that day and couldn't go on hers, me needing to take her to prom with me because she wanted to go. Stuff like that is the norm for us. She adores me, no doubt about it. But I do not think of her as a friend, and I do not like her very much. She's very bad at being a friend, and not just to me. She's selfish and always wants to do stuff she likes, and doesn't take the time to do stuff others want to do, even though she expects you to do her stuff. We don't have common interests either. For years, I complained to my parents about it, how I felt like it was unfair that I had to prioritize my sister over my actual friends. They sent me to therapy and told me she's my best friend. They grounded me once because I told them my sister was not my friend and she wasn't doing anything for me, yet I had to do stuff for her. This is why I moved out. My sister told me she'll move in with me in 2 more years, and she'll stay with me overnight sometimes. She asked about decorating her room at my place. She doesn't have a room. I told her as much, and I told her we would not be living together again, and she was not allowed to spend the night. She asked why, and I said I ran away from home, and she wanted to know why. I told her life will be very different now. She wanted to know if I would drive her to a Christmas fair her school is taking part in, and I said no. I told her she couldn't use me anymore. She brought up staying overnight again, and I made it very clear that would never happen, and she cried and called me mean. Then my parents tried to reach me, but I blocked them when I moved out. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You are setting boundaries now that you're an adult. Good for you. It really sucks that parents have essentially destroyed any resemblance of an actual sibling relationship that Opie and her sister could have had by pushing them so hard. Not the a-hole. Your sister doesn't understand because just as you've been raised to cater to her, she's been raised to expect it. She doesn't know anything else. Show her something else. You can bask in your newfound freedom without cutting your family completely off. Remember, you have full autonomy now. You can dictate how much you'll do. You can end a conversation. You set the rules of your home. You can train them all in how to deal with you. I agree/disagree with this assessment. I would like to think that parents and little sister will have the golden light bulb go off and realize what has been allowed to happen. However, I live in the real world and know it won't. At least not for a very long time, with multiple attempts by both parents and little sister to ignore the boundaries and walk all over OP. The family needs to be cut off until they realize that OP is no longer the third parent in this relationship. Giving any leeway will result in them boundary stomping OP over and over again. The only other option I can think of is to have one very frank discussion with the entire family where OP comes right out and says, "My entire life has been spent being her caregiver, and you have ignored every attempt I have made to rectify the situation. Heretofore, I will no longer babysit, provide transportation, provide companionship/devote all my free time to raising your daughter. You may ask me to, but you should expect me to say no and have alternate arrangements. And as for you, sister, it is high time you get your own life and stop co-opting mine. You will not be living with me. You may not even be allowed to stay overnight if you are unable to comprehend that I am not willing to spend all my life taking care of you. You may not be in my life at all, depending on how well you adhere to my boundaries. You don't have to like it, but you will stop walking all over me, or you will all be put in a timeout until such time as I feel you might respect me, and then walk away before they can argue. I wish hope you well, but don't foresee the parents realizing how awful they have been. Am I the a-hole for opening my husband's safe with a crowbar to get money for an emergency? I, female 31, am a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids. My husband dedicates most of his salary towards the kids and household, but has a safe that he puts money in on a monthly basis. I didn't make a fuss over it, because he said that he saved money for an emergency. I asked for the password countless of times, but he refused to give it to me and said that in case of an emergency, all I needed to do was inform him. He went on a 2-day business trip. Our son got sick and I had to take him to the hospital. The problem is, he needed medication but I didn't have any money except what was in the safe. I called my husband, but he didn't respond. I texted him explaining the situation, but he refused to cut his trip short and come home. I asked how I was supposed to get money for medication, and he suggested I either A, wait for him till he gets home, or B, borrow money from the neighbors. I just had it. I hung up and went to the garage to grab a crowbar, then took it to the safe and opened it. I took the money I needed, which was about $60, and went to the pharmacy store to get the medication. My husband came home a bit earlier, and when he saw what I'd done to the safe, he flipped out and started freaking out at me. I said I had no choice, and that all his suggestions were unreasonable and illogical for me to even consider. He yelled, saying I breached his trust and his boundaries, and should have never touched the safe, much less used the crowbar on it. We had a big argument, and he kept saying that I had no respect for him, his income, and instructions. Then he completely refused to speak to me and is threatening to move the safe since he no longer trusts me around it. Was I in the wrong for the steps I took? Should I have tried another alternative? Edit. I didn't have any credit cards because he's the one that normally has them since they were in his name, and I don't have a bank account to be able to own a credit card. Now for the top comments. This is financial abuse, and it's absolutely insane. Go to the neighbors and borrow money? Seriously? If my neighbor came to me and asked to borrow money because her husband left on a 2-day business trip and left her with no money, I'd call Adult Protective Services. I'd ask if she needed help getting to a women's shelter with her kids. It's 2022. Never mind the fact that as the working parent, he should have set up an account for you, the caregiver, with a few $100s for care expenses at all times. But like $60 for an extremely sick child? We live in an age of instant transfers. And there's a huge big box of money to home, and it says, borrow it from the neighbors? Not stay whole times infinity. You and your children are victims of mistreatment. You need to get out, my dear. So much this. Get out. Run. If only it were so easy. That's why people financially mistreat spouses so that they can't leave. Opie couldn't even get her hands on $60 for kids' medicine without taking drastic measures. How is she supposed to just leave the house? I would assume she's socially isolated, especially since she didn't have friends/family she could call for help either. And she might even be in a rural area, without access to services like a women's shelter. I'm not saying she shouldn't start planning and squirreling away what she can, but just saying run for the hills isn't exactly helpful in these scenarios. She should absolutely start hiding away money whenever she can, and make copies of all important documents as well. Frankly, her best bet would have been to clear out that safe entirely and run with it. But she definitely needs to start making a plan to become independent of her husband, because he's controlling and that is dangerous. Not the a-hole. You do realize that the fact that he cares more about money and this supposed breach of trust than your son's health is highly concerning, right? This behavior is not normal. The fact that he left you with no money and you have access to no money is financial abuse. Let him move the safe all the way out of the house along with his sorry butt. Nah, don't let him move the safe. She should take the rest of the money in it and deposit it into a bank account in her name, then kick him out. She'll need the money to live on until the divorce is finalized. Next story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my sick wife to deal with 2 toddlers on her own? I'd like to give a little bit of background first. I'm male 36 and my wife, female 35, have a 3-year-old daughter. I have a long-standing issues with my wife's sister-in-law because I think that my wife constantly panders to her and caters to her every whim, often at the expense of me and my daughter. Recently, we had a huge fight about her saying something offensive to me in a public setting in defense of sister-in-law at our daughter's expense, and up until this point, she has tried to do better. Now, we've been both floored with flu for the past 10 days or so, negative COVID tests. She seems to have it slightly worse than me, so I've been tagged in to do all chores, childcare, and cooking while she's tried to get as much rest as possible. This has now trickled into a week I booked off work on holiday, which doesn't bother me in itself because I'd rather make sure they were both okay. I am, however, starting to feel really run down myself now. I'm tired. I've had limited opportunity to rest and catch up on sleep, and I'm sore. Today my wife woke up at around 9:15 a.m. I'd been up since 6:30 with daughter and said she was feeling a bit better. I said that's great, and maybe she could hold the fort while I went for a nap. She said that what she was actually thinking was inviting sister-in-law's youngest around for a playdate to keep our daughter occupied. For reference, she's 3. This isn't an uncommon thing to happen. Sister-in-law often brings her kids to us. And for reasons I still don't understand, our daughter was never invited to spend an afternoon with them in their house. I said that I really wasn't feeling up to it today. My wife said that I wouldn't have to do anything to entertain them, to which I was skeptical about, but I agreed. So about 15 minutes after she arrives, I'm asked to get them drinks and snacks and then play games and occupy them. Now, I'm aware that I'd have needed to do this for my own daughter, but going from 1 to 2 toddlers is such a huge leap in terms of the demand on your time and energy. Add this to the fact that I was feeling lousy and it just wasn't a good mix. I'm off work this week, and on top of my illness, I didn't sign up for extra childcare duties. After about 2 hours, I told my wife that I was going up to my mom's house to get a sleep. The whole way up, she was phoning and texting me, absolutely furious that I'd left her to deal with it. I'm literally lying in my mom's spare bed writing this now, but my brain is too wired to sleep. Am I the a-hole? I know it's horrible leaving her while she's sick to deal with 2 toddlers, but after so long holding the ball, I've reached my limit. Not the a-hole at all. You told her you needed rest, and she decided to have a guest over? You should have just gone to take a nap as soon as the other kid arrived. God, I wish I had done this, right as sister-in-law walked in. Why would she invite a toddler over when both of you are still sick? The toddler could pick up the flu at your house and bring it home with her. Exactly. And now, OP, you are at your mom's house while ill? This whole thing is an absolute disaster. Have we forgotten the flu can also be dangerous? The whole thing is irrational. If children were going to be doing playdates, OP's toddler should have gone to sister-in-law's, and then both OP and the wife could rest. Not the a-hole. First of all, you are both sick. Why would your wife want to potentially give that to her niece? Secondly, when both parents are ill and in general is a team effort, you should have your fair share of rest. Otherwise, all that is gonna happen is one will get better whilst the other runs themselves down, physically and emotionally. Your wife invited her around, and your wife should look after her. Next story. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my wife after she woke me up to help with the kids? My wife, Sonia, is a stay-at-home mom to our 2 children, 7 male and 5 female. I really try to help with the kids when I get home. I know being a stay-at-home mom is pretty tiring, even though she has part-time off from school, but helping with homework, making food, and taking care of kids can be exhausting. So when I get home, I make dinner, wash the dishes, and stay with our children for a while so she can have her moment too. These weeks have been pretty exhausting. It is a very important month professionally because in November will be the delivery of a 6-month project that my team and I are idealizing. Last week was the final touches and review of the entire project. So I went to work at 8 a.m., got home at 5 p.m., took care of my kids until 9 p.m., and was actually working until 3 to 4 a.m. to maybe get 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I have trouble sleeping. So if I slept 12 hours in 5 days, it was a lot. I was exhausted. I wasn't even driving because I didn't trust my senses to drive. I couldn't vent to Sonia because she was stressed too as our children had a flu. I was dragged to the hospital by my coworkers after nearly passing out for only walking. The doctor demanded that I take a week's medical leave because I was already on the verge of a burnout. When I got home, I spoke to my wife and she seemed to be understanding. I asked her to give me a day off from everything as I would try to get as much sleep as possible that night to come back better. She said fine. I offered to also give her a day off because I know she was tired too. I went to sleep at 9 p.m. and woke up to Sonia nudging me to take the kids to school. I walked with them. I talked about what we talked about yesterday and she said, yeah, but that's your part of the morning and I have other morning plans. Yoga class, gym, and house cleaning. I asked her 3 times more to do this for me as I was still exhausted. 6:30 a.m. But she just said, you're still a father, tired or not. It could be tired or not, but I ended up losing my mind and screaming, I just need a few hours of sleep. Please respect what I asked of you yesterday and let me sleep. She was in shock and said, okay then. She took the kids and I slept until 4 p.m. There were several messages from her saying that I shouldn't have yelled at her for asking me to take responsibility as a parent and that it was toxic behavior of mine. Well, we haven't talked much more than necessary for 2 days. Am I the a-hole? Yes, I could take them, but as I said in the text, I have a lot of trouble sleeping. After getting up and taking them, it would take a good few hours to get back to sleep, even when exhausted. I answered in the comments and I'll put it as extra. 1. Our children stay from 7:15 a.m. until 1 p.m. at school. My wife picks them up from school and stays with them until 5 p.m. when I get home. 2. The things she does, gym and yoga, take up 2 hours a day. When she gets home, she cleans the house, sweeps, waters the plants, washes clothes, makes lunch, absolutely everything in the house. I don't think the division of tasks is so unfair because I'm not 100% the one who takes care of the kids at night. While I make dinner and wash the dishes, she stays with them and we also have family moments. My kids are in the spirit seeing face. See recent movie 8,000 times. I don't think it's that unfair because it's chaotic sometimes. And I know that being responsible for our kids all day is exhausting, so I offer the same to her later. I couldn't put all this in a post due to limit words. Now for the comments. Given the context, not day hall. A doctor literally ordered you to rest, and your wife agreed to help you. If roles were reversed and you took time off work to step in for your wife, you would be the a-hole for waking her up. She didn't respect your valid medical need to rest. Your doctor even ordered a week of medical leave to rest. If this isn't a recurring thing outside of this isolated incident, not the a-hole. I agree. Well, I'm just assuming here, Opie's wife didn't need to go to the gym or yoga if it was just for fun, and could have walked the kids to school since Opie's doctor literally ordered him to rest. It would have been a different story if the doctor hadn't otherwise. This right here. Also, it appears that the wife gets a 2-hour break every day for yoga/gym. When does Opie get his 2-hour per day break? Not the a-hole. As a rule, I tend to go with you're the a-hole or everyone sucks here when it comes to yelling at people. But while I'm still not a fan even in this situation, it came after trying to be reasonable 3 times. I also usually see the men on here with stay-at-home wives as a-holes because they think their wives should wait on them hand and foot. That's clearly not the case here. It sounds like she has unfair expectations of you. You were literally sick, and she wanted to do yoga. You may apologize to her for yelling, but you standing your ground was not toxic. A good loving wife wouldn't be trying to argue fairness when you're sick from exhaustion. She needs a wake-up call about her entitlement. So let me get this straight. You take the kids to school. They're in school until what, 3? She watches them for 2 hours, then you take over? And otherwise, she does the cooking and housework. Yeah, cooking and housework is a lot, but come on. That's not really a fair division of labor. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my husband drive my son to school with his step-siblings anymore? Context. My ex-husband and I have custody of our 11-year-old son. He's diabetic, and since his diagnosis is relatively new, we're still working on managing things for him so he could continue to live a normal life just like other kids. His stepdad is responsible for dropping him off/picking him up from school, since his step-siblings attend the same school. The issue began when my son started asking me or his bio-dad to take him to school instead of his stepdad. He said a reason for that is because his step-siblings open his lunchbox and take all the additional snacks that he needs in case he had a hypoglycemic episode. That's what we call low blood sugar. His step-siblings would take his lunchbox from him and take the snacks, and only leave him his sandwich and water. His stepdad thinks there's nothing wrong with sharing, although I explained to him about a millionth times how important his snacks are. He promised that he won't let his kids touch my son's lunchbox from now on, and I believed him. Then days ago, my son came home and told me his step-siblings took his snacks from his lunchbox again. I was enraged. I asked if his stepdad saw them. He said yes, and he scolded him when he refused to let them have the snacks. I lost it. I blew up at my husband and told him that my son won't be riding in his car again with his step-siblings after what they've done, and after he allowed it. I told him that my son's father will be driving him to and from school from now on. He lashed out at me saying that I was driving a wedge between the kids and teaching my son to grow up being selfish and self-centered and antisocial, and also making my son distant from him and getting him to favor his bio dad. I refused to discuss it, and now he's acting all hurt and disrespected, saying it was not worth ruining the kids' relationship over some snacks. Edited? His argument is that I don't get his kids the same amount of snacks I get for my son. They go through their snacks in no time. In my defense, I said that the snacks are part of my son's diabetes management routine, and he, unlike his step-siblings, needs them anytime. And so I don't feel like I'm obligated or that I should buy step-siblings the same amount of snacks, seeing that they can do without them for a while. Am I making sense here? My stepchildren's ages are 13 and 10. Unless your husband has some kind of rare cognitive impairment, that means he doesn't understand the meaning of medical condition. He's the one who's the a-hole here, not you. As a longtime Reddit fan, my first instinct is, of course, to suggest dumping him, but I'm trying to curb that instinct. Aw, come on, you know you want to. Maybe just this once. You know, for old time's sake. Just joking with you. But yeah, I agree, the husband is either a bully or an idiot that doesn't understand how dangerous this medical condition can be. Even if he doesn't understand the severity of the medical issues, he does understand that his sons are stealing the majority of his stepson's lunch. If he thought it was unfair his stepson got so many more snacks, he could easily pack snacks for his sons. He is definitely a bully rather than an idiot. Not the a-hole. But maybe it's time to have a conversation with your husband about possibly modifying the custody arrangement for your son, because he is neglecting the boy's very real medical needs in a way that can have very dire health consequences. Also, taking all of something is not sharing. Modify the custody arrangements? How about modifying the marriage arrangements? Am I the a-hole for asking my brother to pay $30,000 for my engagement ring? I hosted a family dinner over the weekend, and my brother brought my nephews 4 and 8 over as well. I used to wear my engagement ring all the time, but lately I keep it in my walk-in closet and mainly wear it for special occasions. While I was cleaning up the dinner table, my nephews went to go play while the adults were still in the outdoor patio/outdoor kitchen area, and my brother was not supervising his kids. During this time, my nephews went into the master bedroom without anyone knowing and started playing with everything, including my engagement ring. When we came to look for them, they panicked because they know they aren't supposed to be upstairs, then ran into the master bathroom and flushed my ring. We called a plumber in case it was somehow in the U-trap of the toilet and not actually gone. But nope. Unfortunately, it was gone for good. We still had the original receipt, so I called my brother. I emailed him a scanned copy as proof of the cost and asked him to reimburse me for the ring my nephew flushed. Immediately, he started calling me an a-hole because we are family and he was just a child and has refused to repay the cost of my ring. I told him I will be taking him to court for this, and now my entire family is blowing up my phone, saying families shouldn't sue each other and just let it go. Edit? No, the ring was not insured. I found out the day after my nephew flushed it. My husband says he forgot, and in the end, never actually insured it. My brother says he does not have the money to repay even $100 per month, and has refused any kind of repayment plan. He said I live in a nice enough house, and if I want a replacement, I should just sell my car. My brother, to this day, has not truly apologized. It was a Canadian sorry, not sorry. He said kids will do what is normal for kids, and they shouldn't be held responsible for a ring. But they were supposed to supervise their kids outdoors with the rest of the family, while I was busy cleaning up. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. His circus, he's monkeys. He wasn't watching them, so that's on him. 100% he should replace your ring. As for all the family who are blowing up at you, it's easy when it didn't happen to them to preach forgiveness. Ignore them. Also, 8 and 4 are more than old enough to know better. My 3-year-old knows not to touch someone else's things in their home without asking. Choices have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are expensive. Sorry this happened to you. 8 and 4 are more than old enough to know better. They did know better. That's why they ran and flushed it. This is the most insane part of the story in my opinion. I get it being kids and all, but what the heck is that? What are these kids learning from their parents? Your $30,000 ring wasn't insured? That's the first thing you're supposed to do, because accidents happen even if you don't wear your ring often. They get stolen or nibblings flush them randomly. Hence, insurance. It's not a deal to sue him because he should never put you in this position. He should have proposed some sort of payment plan in some way, shape, or form. Since he was a giant a-hole about blaming you, now you're not the a-hole taking him to court. Unless you have insurance and can handle it that way. Not the a-hole. Your family's right. Families shouldn't sue each other because it should be being repaid without courts. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not inviting my daughter to my wedding? I, 37 male, am getting married this fall and have made a choice to not invite my daughter Bella, 16 female, due to circumstances I will explain in this post. Before people tell me that we should sit down and talk or do therapy, those options have been exhausted and are no longer viable. Me and my ex-wife, Theresa, 38 female, do not have a good relationship. We started dating at 16 and then had Bella at 21. At first, everything was awesome, but then my wife started hanging out with a group of women. Just not very good people, and I refused to hang out with them. My wife started drinking heavily with this group and going out at night, leaving me with our daughter. I didn't like how she was keeping up our home either, as I worked full-time and she didn't. But the final straw was when I was forced to come along bar hopping. Theresa got embarrassingly drunk, then started calling me a loser in front of everyone. This was not the first time she had publicly disrespected me. She had a habit of trying to show off to her friend by belittling me. I filed for divorce the next weekend. The original custody agreement was 50-50, which then changed because I asked for a DNA test on Bella. I had heard rumors and wanted to confirm. My ex blew up and refused to allow a DNA test to be done, solidifying what I expected. My ex went back and got pretty much full custody because I refused to pay child support without a DNA test. And this has been the arrangement for 5 years. I see Bella a few times a month. I do what I can, but I don't have custody, so it's difficult. I'm engaged to one of my best friends, Chrissy, 33 female. We've known each other since college, and Bella hates her for no reason. Chrissy wasn't even involved in my life once I got married. Bella for some reason thinks she's terrible, when Chrissy has been nothing but nice to her. Then recently someone showed me Bella's social media, where she blasted us, saying how she had a deadbeat dad. Not true, as I paid for her and her mom for 7 years, and still give her money whenever I see her, and called Chrissy a loose woman in the same post. I was planning my invites for our wedding, and I did not invite Bella. She didn't care for us. She called Chrissy a slur, and shamed me on social media, lying for attention. I also don't want drama at my wedding. It should be a fun time, not another event for Bella to hijack. Well, my ex-wife found out about the wedding and asked what Bella's role would be. I told her she didn't have one because she isn't invited. I called Bella and gave her my reasoning, as well as telling her that her posts on social media played a factor, so she should be more careful what lies she wants to put out there. She tried to apologize and say she would behave at the wedding. I told her that I knew she didn't like Chrissy or me that much, so why would she expect an invite? She called me an a-hole, and we haven't spoken since. Am I the a-hole? I wouldn't go as far as calling you an a-hole, but don't expect to be able to salvage any kind of relationship with your daughter in the future. Edit, read again, and change my mind. If you've been wanting a DNA test for 5 years, that means Bella was what, 11 when you decided you wanted one? Which tells her that you only consider her your daughter and want 50-50 custody if she's genetically yours, regardless of the fact that you raised her from childhood. Weird hill to die on if you actually care about her at all, and weird to expect her to want to get along with your fiancé. You're the a-hole. I mean, do most people consider their ex's kid with someone else they were cheating on you with to be theirs? Some people keep in touch with their stepkids after a divorce, but plenty don't. I don't think that is a weird hill to die on. Bella was apparently 11 years old and living with OP half the time. It's really simple to do a cheek swab and send it in for testing. Ex-wife's refusal sounds like an excuse. Daughter, you're the a-hole just for that. Get a court order for a paternity test before you stop paying child support. You also raised this child, but suddenly she isn't your daughter? That is new depths of a-holehood. Legit, and he's upset that his daughter is mad at him for abandoning her. Of course she's not going to like his new wife. As far as she can tell, her dad abandoned her for a new life. You're the a-hole OP. You are a deadbeat and a terrible father. Info, why didn't you have the courts order the DNA test? That's like standard divorce and custody procedure number 1. Your ex would have been held in contempt if she refused a court-ordered DNA test. This makes no sense. Probably because he was already declared her father at birth, because he and the mother were married. Courts usually do not disestablish paternity unless it is directly asked to, since paternity is already established. I'm going to get trashed for this for sure, but why paternity test is an automatic thing? Sure, it's a happy family event when someone is born right there, but sometimes that can be behind lies. Sure, I know laws pretend to protect the child, but at the expense of whom? Next story. Am I the a-hole for saying just because I don't wear my wedding ring doesn't mean I'm trying to hook up? Forgive me if I spell something wrong. My buddy said to post my story here due to all the backlash I'm getting from a job. I, 41 male, have 2 jobs. One is a full-time blue-collar job where I work with cement a lot just for some background. And the other is a small firm another buddy of mine owns as a part-time accounting associate. So at this accounting firm, everyone else knows I'm married and has been married for 17 years, with 2 kids, 14 male and 12 female. They hired a new full-time accountant. Let's call her River. To me, she has been a crowd pleaser, and due to most of work being virtual, we had a much more lax dress code. For context, for my primary job, I work for 10-hour shifts a week, and normally Monday to Thursday. Then Friday and Saturday I work at my buddy's firm, basically do reconciliations on an accrual basis. I normally don't wear my ring because sometimes I have to go help on a project and have lost many rings and cement without realizing it. So I normally don't wear it when I am working because everyone already knows that I am a married man. The only thing I talk about is my family, construction, and accounting. Then some of the guys at the office were talking about River, how she has been dumped by her boyfriend and is looking for a new man. Me, being the kind person I am, said I hope she finds a man who would make her happy. Somehow what I said got to her, and she thought that I was hitting on her. And she came up to me and tried to tell me a sob story about her man was insecure about her having a lonely fence. I said that is definitely a deal breaker for most, so I guess she thought I was saying I am an exception. So she asked if I want to record some content later, and I politely said, no, I am married. She said, why don't you have a ring on then? And I said I don't wear a ring because they normally get lost in cement. She said, you must want to appear single if you don't wear your ring here. And I said, just because I don't wear a ring doesn't mean I want to hook up with some professional. She screamed and called me a misogynistic pig and said she will get me fired. I just laughed and said, you're selling your body for money. Back in my day, they had a name for those. They're professionals. So I asked, am I the a-hole here? Now for the comments. You were not the a-hole for the entire post until those last few sentences. Big for your response to her. It was unnecessary and cruel. I bet it made you feel really big though to belittle someone. It was pretty necessary. She asked a coworker to make adult content with her, didn't take no for an answer, and called him a liar and insisted he wanted to appear single. If she's going to be sensual and pushy, she deserves to be insulted. I bet if it was a man doing it to a woman, you'd be saying the exact opposite of what you are now. Yes, honestly, calling her a professional is basically what she was to OP. She wanted to hook up with him in order to get paid, even if it wasn't by OP. Not the a-hole. Also, she is admittedly a worker who was propositioning to you. What does it make her? The only criticism people can make to you is the wording, but she was the one who started by harassing you at work. You should take the initiative and tell your boss before she tries to control the narrative. I hope he heed that advice. He is now in a vulnerable place and cannot trust her. Not the a-hole. You are not wrong. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. He called a spade a spade. She wasn't angry at a time of making money through OF by selling her pictures, but is now angry that people openly associate her with her profession? You stood your ground, man. You are a believer in true gender equality. I completely support you. Same. If I was there, I would have said, get wrecked after that line. Haha. It sounds like he was dishing the same energy she was giving. But I agree. He should let his supervisor know before she does, and this whole thing becomes more unnecessary drama. Last story. Am I the a-hole for asking boyfriend of 3 years to not go to a wedding without me? Me and my boyfriend have been living together for a year and been a couple for a total of 3 years. I've met my boyfriend's childhood friend that I'm now posting about several times, and he has always been very kind to me. However, meeting his fiancée was a different story. She was very rude to me, talked only to my boyfriend, and when I tried to be part of their conversation, she told me that my boyfriend used to be in love with her friend, which I had no idea about since it happened 10 years ago before I was part of his life. I continued to try to be kind to her and complimented her engagement ring, asking when they were supposed to get married. And her reply to me was, "When is your boyfriend going to propose to you?" I was surprised and said, "I don't know," and remained silent for a while, letting them keep their conversation going before asking my boyfriend to come with me to the bar to get a drink. At the bar, I explained I didn't feel very welcome and asked if we could leave. He wanted to stay and we did. I continued to try to be kind to everyone since I don't know most of the people there. I have since then met both my boyfriend's friend and his fiancée again, and it has been fine. However, we recently received a wedding invitation that states that they are getting married this summer. My boyfriend has paid for a bachelor party that includes them going for a weekend in another country. Unfortunately, my name was not on a wedding invitation. However, it was signed, "We look forward to celebrate our special day with you." Since me and my boyfriend have been a couple for 3 years and are living together, we both assumed I'd be included in the invite. But to make sure, my boyfriend asked the groom if it was okay to RSVP for both of us. His friend responded that they couldn't have everyone bring a +1. As my boyfriend thought it was a decision for all of their mutual friends who wasn't married, he said he understood. However, it now seems that I'm the only one of the girlfriends/wives who are not invited. I would really hate for him to miss this event, but clearly the fiancé doesn't like me, and I feel like if my boyfriend went without me, it would be making it okay for her to exclude me for no real reason. I think he should ask his friend why I'm the only one not invited, and ask how his friend would have reacted if it was the other way around and it was them in our situation. They've known each other for nearly 20 years. It just seems wrong to not invite his partner as well. And it's breaking my heart seeing my boyfriend having to choose. Yet, at the same time, I feel as all our mutual friends are going, he should stand up for me. Am I the a-hole? His friend responded that they couldn't have everyone bring a +1. My boyfriend has paid for a bachelor party that includes them going for a weekend in another country. So the person who paid for his bachelor party in another country can't bring a +1? Not the a-hole. They are. And so is your boyfriend if he accepts this behavior towards you. If my friend tried this, I would cancel all the reservations except the flight. They can figure it out when they get there. No, not the a-hole. And Opie's boyfriend should be ashamed of his lack of spine. Not the a-hole. This is BS, and they are clearly isolating you. Your boyfriend paid for a bachelor party in another country, and yet they can't afford to invite his long-term partner. That's incredibly tacky, and they clearly think snubbing you is more important than your boyfriend's friendship. How on earth is your boyfriend not furious about this rudeness to you, and also rudeness to him? Can he not see how everyone else is getting a +1 but not him? Is he not embarrassed? They want to get the boyfriend hooked back up with his old love, the bride-to-be's best friend. Boyfriend should insist on Opie attending, or he should withdraw from the wedding and all the preparations. Anything short of this shows his lack of respect/support with Opie. Not the a-hole. Ask your boyfriend to tell his bestie that it's not fair for you to be excluded when all of the other girlfriends have been invited. If they continue to exclude you after that conversation, and your boyfriend wants to go without you, or if he doesn't stand up for you and have this conversation, he doesn't care about you enough for you to stay with him. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for a former friend's daughter's college? I'm male 37, had a friend Roy, male 37, when I was in high school. We were friends for years prior to graduating and remained friends some years after. I considered him my best friend. At one point he had a daughter, May, and I became her godfather at his and his partner's request. At the time, I was still living with a bunch of friends from high school, one of which was my roommate Taylor and his brother Jordan. Roy split with his wife during this time, and since I was his closest friend, I convinced the other guys to let Roy move in. Jordan had never liked me from the get-go and attempted to drive wedges between my friends and I. He did this whenever I wasn't around, and I didn't realize how bad it had gotten until it was too late. He'd make shrewd comments about my girlfriend being out of my league and my career amongst other things. And a few people who remained my friends told me in more detail that he lied about me, like saying I had trashed the kitchen when it was really him. And despite them trying to defend me, their words fell on deaf ears. I wasn't aware, but apparently even Roy believed Jordan. Our lease was ending near this point, and Jordan, Taylor, and Roy had plotted behind my back to kick me out. We live in a 5-bedroom, and one of our roommates was leaving. But because of Jordan, many of my friends were uncomfortable moving in with me. So, they decided to kick me out to bring 2 new people in, informing me about a month before the lease ended. I was betrayed and hurt, most of all by Roy, the person I considered a brother. After I got kicked out, I struggled on my own for a while. I was 24 at a time, and I had a decent job, which is the only reason I made it on my own, even if it was just barely. That career set me up well for my future, to the point that I now live very comfortably to say the least. Flash forward about 6 years later, and Jordan drunkenly told Taylor and Roy that he had purposely gotten me kicked out, and that devolved into him spilling his guts about the situation. Turns out he was jealous of my girlfriend, who is now my wife, and how easy my life looked. Roy and the others attempted to reconcile, and though I tried, it never felt right. I remained low contact. That brings us to now. May graduated, and they asked me to help pay for her college since I'm her godfather. I refused, based on the events of over 10 years ago now, and the fact that I hadn't been treated like her godfather in over a decade. He, his family, and my mother all seem to think I'm in the wrong, while my wife is annoyed they have the balls to ask. I genuinely don't feel like I am, but I'm sick of being pestered by so many. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for college? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Never heard of a godparent being asked to help pay for college, especially when they haven't been involved in a kid's life. Ignore them. Who came up with that? Someone who didn't save for their own kid's education. I'm with your wife here. They have a lot of nerve. Not the a-hole. She is absolutely fuming at this. She was with me through the whole experience, so she knows firsthand how much this hurt me when it happened. I didn't think I was the a-hole, but so many people are on me about it that I wasn't sure. Not the a-hole. Listen to your wife who has been by your side when your best friend who knew you better than anyone stabbed you in the back. Your ex-best friend's entitlement is astounding. So are you just supposed to forget all the hurt he has caused you? And the fact that due to his actions, you had no relationship with your godchild all those years and just quite happily hand over your money? Just no. And all those people saying you should pay, well, turn it around on them and ask them how much they are willing to pay. I bet you the excuses will be fast and furious. You're right. Honestly, thinking about it, it makes me really proud she has my back. I couldn't ask for a better spouse. She is everything. I'm proud to call myself hers. And that is also a great point. It isn't some small fee. May is going to need a lot for her engineering classes. I don't know how much anyone else is even contributing. Next story. Am I the a-hole for kicking out my 22 female friend, 21 female, for demanding I pay rent for my apartment? My friend Dee and I have been living in the apartment my parents own for college. We split utility bills, while she also pays 300 euros for rent. It's 2 bedrooms, living room, kitchen, and a half bathrooms in a nice area. And 300 euros is not nearly how much rent for that place would cost under normal circumstances. Nevertheless, our parents are civil with each other, so the massive discount was agreed upon on the premise that we split utility. I don't pay rent as my parents own it, but work and spend my own money for daily needs and groceries. Dee doesn't either. Her parents pay everything. So for a year now, Dee has been inviting her college friend, who I'll call Amy, to study at our place, sometimes sleep over. Amy lives off campus, but in a really dodgy area with her older brother and his friend. More than a month ago, Dee asked if Amy can stay over for a week. I told her no problem, because I had a vacation set for that time. When I got back 9 days later, she was still at our place. So I asked Dee when Amy was going home, as I had planned for my friend to come over for the weekend. She told me Amy got into a fight with her brother and didn't want to be there right now. I was annoyed, but I never found an issue with Amy, so I just asked she leave until the end of the week. She didn't. 3 weeks passed and bills came in, which were almost double of what they were previously. I sat down Dee, gave her a rundown of the bills, and she seemed surprised. She told me I'm not paying that much. I looked at her and made a joke. Yeah, you're not. Your dad is. Dee got angry and went into her room. I thought the joke didn't land well, so I knocked on her door to apologize. But I overheard Dee ranting how I don't pay for anything, so I wouldn't understand why her parents are mad. I entered the room, told Amy to pick up her stuff and leave. She seemed embarrassed, but 20 minutes later she left. I asked Dee what she meant by that, and she said, "The bills are twice as much as last month's, and Dad is going insane over why he has to pay this much when you even had a guest over." I told her she's a hypocrite if she thinks my friend staying over for a weekend affected the bills nearly as much as Amy living here for a month. She told me I'm heartless for blaming Amy, who was having a hard time, for the increased bills, and screamed I should contribute more to them. Then she called her dad in the bathroom and demanded that I pay rent too, because it's unfair. I told her she's insane if she thinks I should pay rent in my own apartment, and that she has until the start of the semester to find another place and move out. Dee started crying and throwing some towels on the ground. She did move out a few days ago, and we haven't spoken since, but Amy texted me apologizing for burdening me. My parents told me it wasn't my decision to make, even though they agree. Now, I'm not sure if I was an a-hole for making her move out or for how I acted towards both her and Amy. Not the a-hole. It's just pure logic. People are too soft and illogical these days. If she feels so inclined to help someone out, then she should do so from her own pocket. Exactly. Help your friend all you want, but not on somebody else's dime. Yep, some people just don't get how they're forcing problems onto other people, and when confronted, want to say stuff about moral high ground. Sorry that sucks, but it literally has nothing to do with OP's life. I once had a roommate who would take in stray animals, then criticize me for not helping out. I'd say, you chose this charity, not me. Apparently, this made me a selfish a-hole. Not the a-hole. It's done and sorted. Move on and study well. Thank you. Not the a-hole. Rooming with a friend is a great way to lose a friend. Find a roommate who seems responsible and charge the full rent. Yep, better to be roommates before friends. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling a friend that I can't be there after her F-buddy died? My friend started seeing a guy who told her he was married and had kids. He just wanted a physical relationship, and she was okay with that, she said. 6 months later, she was mad that he didn't want to leave his wife for her, and she went to tell his wife. So that ended their little setup, but his wife forgave him. 4 years later, my friend contacts him again on Facebook. She apologizes and tells him that now she is ready for just a physical relationship. Everything's going great, until 6 months later, and after a quick morning session, he tells my friend he's not feeling well. He drives home and dies after getting home. My friend finds out because she doesn't hear from him for some days and calls a mutual friend of theirs who tells her. She's hysterical when she calls me. I get that it's a shock, and then his wife found their secret messages on his phone. My friend finds out the date of his burial and she insists she's going. I tell her not to. She attends, but his sister tells her to go home. Every time we talk, she's talking about him and how she's visiting his grave and is leaving little trinkets, hearts and frames by his grave. I ask her if she has thought about how his wife and kids might feel about this, but she insists that she's in mourning and this is her way of dealing with it. I might be insensitive, but I tell her I find it disrespectful, and that if this was her husband, would she want her dead husband's F-buddy doing that? So in her own words, I'm insensitive and probably an a-hole. I'm just confused because she has told me many times that their rendezvous was just physical and that's all she wanted. So am I the a-hole for putting some distance between this friend and myself and not being there as much as I probably would have had it been a friend or family member of hers who had died? Edit. I know many are questioning my own morals by being her friend. There are many things I wish I had done differently. After his death, she called me and was hysterical. Her wanting to go to his funeral and now visiting his grave is something I've talked to her out of. I've never supported any of what she's doing with this guy. We've known each other since we were little as how our moms know each other and all that. So it's gonna create some contention. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. I would distance myself from someone who thought all of that was acceptable. She thinks you are insensitive? Says the mistress who showed up at his funeral. Wow. Yeah, this is not a situation I would want to be anywhere close to. Fully agreed, not the a-hole, but you will beat yourself if you don't GTFO before you get caught up in something worse. Not the a-hole. Why are you friends with someone who thinks it's okay to behave like this? At the moment, we're low contact. If we speak, I tell her my opinion about these visits she's making to his grave. So I'm definitely the minority here. But what your friend is experiencing is called disenfranchised grief. It happens when a person's grief is deemed unacceptable due to societal norms. She needs to see a therapist, or her behavior may worsen. What she has done is wrong, but people do not always have a rational reaction to grief. Also, she's getting a lot of hate in these comments, but the only person responsible for this man's wife's feelings is the guy who is dead now. I can't stand a cheater. He's ruined multiple lives, and is not even here anymore to answer for it. Cheaters are the worst, but homewreckers are a close second. I don't know why she's morally in the clear for hooking up with a married man, just because she's not the one in the relationship. People have a responsibility to demonstrate a basic level of decency and concern for the lives and feelings of others, even strangers. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend it was too damn bad she was uncomfortable? I work as a kind of personal assistant / art handler and organizer to an individual with an extensive collection. It's an interesting job, and I get a lot of opportunities for new experiences and invitations to events. My boss and I do not have the same tastes in art. He's an older, very traditional guy, and that reflects in the events I get invited to and the people that I'm interacting with at these events. We have a world-famous opera in our city, and I was gifted 2 tickets to the opera last weekend, with an invitation to attend a pre-show cocktail party in a private area. This was not a work event for me, but still a networking opportunity and a gift from my boss's personal friend. My fiancé was visiting family, so I invited my friend Sarah to join me. She arrived at my house Saturday afternoon to get ready with me. She had brought a dress to wear that I didn't think she should. It was very pretty, but more like a club dress than an event dress. Bright pink and very short. And our opera is known for a no dress code, just be fabulous approach, so it was fine for the venue itself. But I knew the pre-party was going to be an older, more traditional opera dress crowd. I myself wore a deep green floor-length dress for reference. I offered her the option of choosing something out of my closet and told her that I thought she might be uncomfortable at a party because of the type of group they were. But she wanted to wear that dress, so I didn't push it. At a party, most of the attendees didn't seem interested in engaging with her, and while outwardly polite, it did feel like they were equally uncomfortable with her presence, as she was being there. She stayed next to me the whole time, which was fine, but she was sullen and kept grabbing my arm to whisper in my ear that we should leave. After the 3rd time, Sarah pulled me out of the conversation and told me she wanted us to leave the party. I got irritated and told her it was too damn bad that she was uncomfortable. I warned her. There are 2 bars out in the public area. She could go hang out there and I'd join her in an hour for the show, but I couldn't leave yet without looking bad. I might not have been working, but I accepted the invitation. And now my behavior here reflects on my boss, and that ultimately affects my job, regardless of it not being officially work. Sarah stayed at a party instead, and eventually it was over and we attended a show. She didn't speak to me at all on the drive home, and texted me after I dropped her off that she was upset by the way I had treated her, and that I should have left when she wanted. I think that's unfair. I talk about my job all the time, and she knows very well that expectations are placed on me at these events, and how I am expected to act. I tried to tell her, but obviously I wasn't going to force her to change. But she's still mad, and a mutual friend is guilting me for not caring about Sarah's comfort. And I'm starting to feel a little bad. And I don't know, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Fair warning was given prior to the event, as well as an opportunity to change attire. That being said, I don't know the extent of the warning given, and perhaps a bit more detailed explanation should be given next time to ensure the individual in question knows exactly what might occur. Sometimes communicating a warning doesn't match the level of internal concern due to not wanting to insult the person, resulting in them not thinking too much about it, and it may be possible that was the case. Her feelings are somewhat justified, as it sucks being judged like that. But as mentioned, you're not the a-hole here. I just want to add though, while I'm sure there was judgment, Sarah's behavior probably made it worse than just wearing an inappropriate outfit. When you're uncomfortable, you can appear standoffish. Additionally, it sounds like Sarah was standing next to OP the entire time, while also choosing not to engage with others. She pulled OP out of 3 separate conversations. How rude. She was whispering, which is also rude, and obviously wanted to leave with her body language. And she saw OP's formal floor-length dress, so that should have been enough of a clue. OP, in the future, make sure to only bring people who are comfortable holding their own. The seeing OP's formal-length dress is the big thing for me. I feel like if you're the +1 for an event, you should be matching the formality level as the one bringing you along. Especially if you're an outsider, you don't want to be standing out because of the clothes you wear. If anything, Sarah should have been coordinating with OP before even leaving her home to make sure her outfit would be appropriate. Not the a-hole. Sarah came as your guest to what she knew was a career-related function for you. She insisted on dressing inappropriately when advised against it, and her repeated demands that you leave because she was as uncomfortable as you told her she would be were immature and self-absorbed. And so was her refusal to retreat to an area where she might be more comfortable and let you finish working the room. So is her sulking and involving another friend who wasn't there, knows only her side of the story and should STFU instead of getting in the middle. I predict you'll find yourself outgrowing friends like Sarah in about 5, 4, 3, 2.